winter's night, and we're on our way there, cats. We're getting there. We're gonna have all the holiday music. Everybody's ears will be bleeding from Mariah Carey's voice, drowning out all semblance of thought they could have in the back of their minds. What a beautiful, beautiful time we're headed towards. And speaking of, here we are on Lightshade. In the bottom right, we have the red Protoss player. She is Nina, repping Psystorm Gaming.
And in the top left-hand side, it is DisK, the blue Protoss player, of course. And he is representing a new team here by Sugar, formerly of Alpha X, as well as Penguin, formerly of Psystorm. So both people with a lot of experience on in terms of like team management and whatnot. And they started their own team, and DisK is one of their first players. So lovely to see that as well.
For sure. You know, cats, it's really great that we have these teams and these orgs that are involved. It reminds me, there was this other team recently that had some dope news. I don't know if you heard. I know you're very busy. You're a very busy guy, Paolo. But one of my favorite teams was they were doing some cool stuff, getting out there a bit more. If you've heard of Root Gaming, I know that's kind of it's not one that everybody's aware of, but it's been nice to see the competitive scene, of course, in StarCraft being supported and brought together by so many awesome people out there.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. Yeah, we're really happy with how that's going. We've obviously acquired a lot of players, but seeing as neither of those players are en route, I'd rather just rather talk about a little bit more about what Apprentice Esports has done, as well as Psystorm, that they have both been fantastic, I think, for the community and the North American scene for a very long time. So yeah, I mean, this should be an amazing match, as well as my tostones while they lasted were amazing, Nate. But now they are gone.
You better link me when we're done with work today.
Oh
you have to link me that. I will forget. You know, it goes without saying, but when we finish the broadcast, just like finishing a stream, I literally forget everything that happened during the entire time until I look at the match history and see it's like, oh yeah, the game they played on Lightshade, right? That's when DisK went double sentry into 3 Stargate carrier rush on 1 base.
It might be that. Are you predicting the future? Because there is now double sentry on the way here for DisK, Nate. So he is going to be looking to kind of keep up the scouting and kind of play for that later game, whereas Nina has the potential for aggression once her first or her next 2 stalkers make it out onto the field. She's going to have 4 of those. Very reasonable to go for stalker pressure on this map. A, the distance is very short, and B, there is no ramp leading into the natural base. And that means that stalkers on flat surface should be able to poke up without the need for, you know, anything spotting for them up a ramp. And that's when they are at their strongest. So we'll see. DisK already, however, with the shield battery, should feel pretty safe here.
Yeah, strong setup. And as we were talking about before, 3 sentry opening. So a lot of force fields. Even if Nina wanted to get aggressive, it would be incredibly risky without Blink or a Prism, because she could just get pinched in front and be unable to avoid getting picked off by those. Even if they're lower DPS, you can't escape, and DisK will have a shield battery. So yeah, you don't want to get into anything crazy early on. Now, Nina getting a robotics facility, this is like, you can feel like nature is healing. We're heading back to where things need to be.
Yeah, I think this robotics facility, I mean, it's a little bit strange to me that Nina did make this many stalkers, not to be aggressive with them at all, but maybe with a warp prism, she'll do some of that fancier micro that you were talking about. Now warping in sentries, and see, from my perspective, if she had assessed that she could drop the sentries a little bit earlier, she would have had more scouting information, more energy, kind of like what DisK managed to do here, to be aware of things a little bit earlier and have more energy banked up for later information gathering. So definitely the better of the early game for DisK, seeing as it was mostly uneventful.
Yeah, so DisK is going to send out the hallucinated Phoenix, but Paolo, there's a pylon in the bottom center that he's dropped as well. And I'm not entirely sure whether it's just to give information down the line or perhaps something more nefarious. Blink is halfway done. Could be a decent reinforcement point if he wants to try and do an early Blink attack against Nina, because she has that robo, which we talked about. She's just now started Blink, though. So there will be a decent window where it's not available for her. And I think the advantage there on that is in the form of the faster, not really faster third Nexus, but the +1 attack on the Forge, which Rotterdam has conditioned me. He told me that I'm a terrible caster if I don't make sure to check for Forges in PvP when we're at that 5-minute mark, and I'm scrambling for things to look at because both builds are the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very important, those upgrades, and we see DisK is following suit with the Forge. At the same time, as soon as he gets Blink, he's going to come here and try to apply some pressure. I would love for those sentries to be kind of left behind so that they aren't risked with the Stalkers should evacuation be necessary. Instead, DisK is going to bring him over to the front, and this is still enough units, I think, that Nina's going to struggle to defend. A cancel would be wonderful for DisK here, and it is going to be available seemingly, so that is a great start for him. He already had the faster third, now a considerably faster third, so at the expense of not having the Robo, he is able to get that Blink earlier, and he is able, therefore, to be a little bit riskier, take a little bit more map control, and with his Nexus already finished, he's in a great position.
Yeah, so macro setup-wise, DisK looking good. Nina restarts the third Nexus, and as you were talking about, DisK already has his set up. Got a shield battery on that bad boy, too, as well as a tremendous number of probes mining away. So with the 6 extra gateways that are being added, this is DisK saying, I am going to get everything that I could possibly need so that I can just start cranking out big waves of warp ins, get my bases saturated, and then if Nina has to play a little bit of catch up, things can definitely start to get dicey. But her Blink is ready, her +1 attack is done, and DisK doesn't have +1 attack, but that economic advantage quickly turns into an army supply advantage too, Cats, right?
Yeah, but oh, this is a nice move potentially for DisK. I don't see a hallucination nearby though, so I'm not sure how he's going to blink onto that high ground. That's certainly the move that he's looking for later on. What I'm concerned about for Nina is that, yeah, she has the faster +1, and she does start +2 fast, which is really good news because that provides her a potential timing later down the line. But DisK is just kind of doing everything that he needs to do, and Nina dropped the Robo as well, the Robo Bay, which means that she is kind of slowing down the game in her own right by going for those disruptors. That is going to be a further advantage to a DisK who was already ahead in macro in terms of bases, in terms of probes, and he is also dropping a much faster 4th base than Nina is. So I don't know that it favors Nina to kind of slow down the game because, yeah, I mean, DisK, in spite of being a little bit behind in upgrades, his economy is phenomenal. Will be.
The biggest thing, I think, with how this situation is played out is we have to consider and keep in mind that Nina does prefer to play a strategy that isn't necessarily bad to be a little bit behind from. Disruptors can change the tides of any fight very quickly, and she is going to focus on producing those over anything else. Charge is done for DisK. Nina, forget about it. She's not even going for it, doesn't need it. She's thinking about getting a bunch of disruptors off those double robos, and whatever economic differences that we're talking about, she's going to hope to make up for with some purification novas. And if you've tuned into Nina's stream, if you've seen her play before, the expectations are generally pretty high because she is good at landing them novas.
For sure. I mean, the economic differences for the most part have vanished. Now both players resuming probe production. DisK will have the real estate to use it, of course. But both players kind of stopped for a while there at 62 workers. Of course, DisK was a little bit quicker to it, so he has managed to amass a bigger army since. And now we'll find an observer for his troubles as well. I love this move out on the map for DisK because he is just looking potentially to prevent a 4th base from Nina. So upon not seeing one, I'm not sure that I want to see him commit further, though with that many Zealots, Nate, he might just be forced to.
Yeah, and as you can see the way that Nina is spreading out these pylons on top of the ramp.
Beautiful.
So that they can mess with the AI of the ranged units, but also block the pathing of those Zealots. And this is the kind of, heads up play that, I don't know, personally, I love to see. I assume you do as well, Cats. It's a smart approach to dealing with it. It does put some resources in front of your opponent's face, but Nina wants to control where the engagement takes place and when it does. And that first shot was not bad. Second one is going to get shut down, man. Well, you can see where those disruptors are starting to generate value very quickly, Cats.
Nina has to be careful, though, because she is getting a little bit far away from her ramp and now has already used a few of those disruptor shots, so DisK is going to collapse onto her army. She really doesn't have the chance to fight against this heavy of a Zealot army, especially not while some of those disruptor shots are down. So yeah, she wants to, the thing is she wants to protect that high ground, and she does so. But I think DisK at this point identifies that his win condition is just to not allow Nina to take a fourth base, because he has his own situated. Nina chooses to take a fourth base on the other side of the map. We'll see how fast DisK is to identify this, and if he is willing to relocate, reposition for it.
Yeah. And when we talk about, I mean, as long as the Zealots don't get close, they can't really deal damage. So you have this huge Stalker ball that can chase and poke and prod and punish the repositioning of those forces. But DisK has, he's going to play ball, literally. He's got his own disruptors coming out now. But Nina has 6 of them already, going up to 8, getting +3 attack. And she did eventually get charged in Observer Speed, Cats. Observer Speed over Warp Prism Speed. That is an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, Vision is going to be so important for this Disruptor Wars. Vision is just kind of everything, right? Like the element of surprise can be very, very, very important. So the observers oftentimes can't run away from each other, but yeah, the speed will make the difference oftentimes with this heavy of Stalker armies. Nina double expanding. I really like that approach as well. So if either of her expansions fall, she would have still had or acquire the other one in terms or in order to mine it. Now, DisK will find this expansion, but Nina is ready to pounce on her attack, on that attack.
Yes, she's got a couple of Stalkers defending that Nexus like you were talking about in the northeast, and the rest of the army is like, oh, we can go kill Nina's bottom side base, except Nina already had her forces split up rather nicely. Blinks forward, tries to snipe an Archon, not going to be able to get it, but very low on shields. And well, this is where it gets dangerous. Disruptors versus disruptors.
Yeah, this is a very positional fight now. I mean, DisK has kind of like, he doesn't have a window anymore to kind of use his bigger, more Zerg-like type army, right? Like the floodier, the more swarmy type of Protoss that he had with that very high influx of Zealots early on. And so now he is forced to slow down the game himself. And with Nina taking her expansion, even though one of her expansions was taken down by the Zealot Rambai in the north, things will kind of stabilize. And now it's just down to the last fight, or the big fight, I should say, Nate.
Yeah. It's going to turn into an AoE dodgeball, Cats. You do not want to get hit, and hitting is the only way to win. Big big army for Nina moving out towards that northwest base. There is a Nexus to the north of where her army is as well. So on the way out, she might see that. Disruptor Shot's going to chunk that Immortal. And DisK actually has a pretty big counter going over towards the northeast of DTs and Zealots, but it's all about the posturing between the disruptors.
Yeah, very good disruptor shots from the side of DisK, in spite of having the positional disadvantage. But Nina kind of sneaking on through to that triangle base of DisK makes it so that it's too difficult for the American Protoss, well, I guess they're both American Protoss, for DisK to kind of reclaim that space, Nate, because once disruptors are situated in a space, they are very difficult to dislodge. So defensively, they are incredible. Aggressively, they can be incredible if you manage to get to the right position. And Nina definitely doing that. Sneaking on through. Okay, disruptor barely falling.
She's grabbed a couple of those disruptors thus far. Not bad at all. And yeah, like we were saying earlier, I mean, this is just how these kinds of games boil down. Nina's okay with letting DisK kind of be greedy early on because she just wants to be able to control these fights and have that number of disruptors that DisK can never really confidently dive onto her army without risking everything. But he's building 3 disruptors at a time now. So again, we're going in deep on this one.
Definitely. And he also took 3 Nexus at a time. Oh, big disruptor shot there to eliminate 4. Now all of the disruptors are of DisK, at least here at the front. So that's gonna make Nina potentially think that she can continue to siege this area. Of course, most of the disruptor shots have been spent, so she has to be a little bit careful. And a huge blink forward from DisK to pick off one of those disruptors. The disruptor flank from Nina not gonna amount to too much. And so with just 2 disruptors left on the low ground for DisK, Nina might feel rather trapped here as the disruptor shots are gonna go off. Catching a few stalkers on the back is Nina. There are no disruptor shots available for DisK, however, Nate, so things are getting a little bit complicated for him.
Yeah, well, and the other interesting thing here is we talked about the observer speed. Yeah, you're right, Paolo. She's been moving those around left and right, to and fro. She's got she's had great vision. They were following the army the whole way through. One of them just flew into a cannon, but she had them kind of around the edges of where the fight was taking place, just to make sure that if there was a chance to try and flank some of the army with those disruptors, as we saw earlier, that she would be able to go for that. And now gets on top of this ramp. Oh, don't walk up the ramp. Okay, DisK. Yeah, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes, indeed. The disruptor shots are gonna walk on forward, and one will connect onto one single stalker from the side of DisK. But I think Nina has had the better of this trade so far. If we look at the resources lost, actually Nina has lost 3,000 less resources. Now it's DT versus DT.
So many DTs.
One of the NA classics here. Love to see it.
The invisible Protoss snipe.
Love to see it, absolutely. Nina, confident out on the map with a much greater disruptor force, is going to continue to look for those positional advantages, and little by little she's looking stronger and stronger. It's DisK with a bank, but Nina keeps finding disadvantages, and those observers have been crucial as well in just giving Nina information. Look at the map. There's a lot more red kind of scattered than there is blue. DisK will go for a counterattack because the positions have been forgone by him on his side of the map, so I don't hate this, but it's gonna hit later than Nina. So Nina kind of has a little bit of room to do more damage, but instead she's gonna actually just walk her army back. I'm not sure that I love that.
I don't think there's an observer with the army for DisK. I think DisK's observers were mostly kept away. Yeah, he only has 3 observers. They're all stuck on one mineral patch in his main base. Actually, a huge mistake. He has no detection. So the DTs that Nina warped in were enough to push him back. And again, if you click on his observers, they're all on a mineral patch.
Damn. I mean, yeah, that's not it.
No, that's not where they need to be right now. Okay, there we go. So he builds 2 more, and they're now with the army. But the other 3 that are on that mineral patch, I'm going to scratch my head over that one for a while.
Well, this man definitely doesn't use the F2 button. That much we know. Because, I mean, 3 observers.
Good point.
Yeah, so props to him. But at the same time, you know, most of us would have those observers with our army, whether we like it or not.
That's true. It's a very astute observation. Trying to be a good player, but in the process, giving up some opportunities there. We get to see Dark Templar kill photon cannons, a rare sight in StarCraft 2. But there are just that many of them, and we have plenty of DTs on the part of DisK heading over towards Nina's base. But there are a couple of batteries to power those up.
Oh wow!
And the production for DisK is suddenly under threat. This has to be Nina just setting up for a dub. With all the money that DisK has in the bank, there's not much to spend it on that's going to stop this, I don't think.
Yeah, this is difficult. I mean, Nina does spend a lot of her disruptor shots here, but DisK is still gonna have to look for an opportunity. He still might just have to eat a couple more disruptor shots, because at this point, if he doesn't kill the army of Nina right here, right now, before it evacuates, and if he's not able to win on the counter offense, I don't know that he can recover. I know that he cannot recover on the economic front, right? He's 60 probes behind now, so his only win condition is crushing this army right here, right now. And to do that, he's gonna have to run head first into some disruptor shots. It's looking grim.
Yeah, nobody wants to have to do that. No longer mining is DisK. Supply capped for probes. Some zealots do come in on the flank side, so he spread his army out as best as he possibly could. Jumped onto Nina's disruptors. The problem is, Nina has thousands of resources, and she has the full supply cap available, and she's still mining. Yeah. So the production hasn't really been hurt. This army's going to be largely cleaned up. It's a big army supply lead for DisK, but he needs to go kill her right now. There is 0 time to do anything.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I think if Nina ever lost this game, and there is some semblance of a chance that she does, she has to beat herself up just if not just for the fact that her disruptor should have just been with her army, and she would have been basically invincible, but instead all of them kind of fight alone against the army of DisK. DisK does a great job on the flank there, and now if he can beat this army once again, he will be able potentially to close out the game. But it looks like Nina is buying herself too much time, and every second that goes, I mean, she has a 7 to, well, actually it's 70 workers to 1, so yeah. The economy
you would say that's a pretty significant difference, the number of workers that are different between the 2 of them? I would say so, yes, for sure. And she target fired the observers, by the way. So the DTs, the other observer was brought forward, and we can see it's in that siege mode behind. but Nina was trying to make it a little bit easier on herself, just kill the observers and win, but it doesn't really matter. She can make units, DisK can't. GG.
GG indeed. What a beautiful game there from Nina. Just positionally, she kind of bested DisK at every corner, it seemed, right? Like she was always finding those positions to be annoying with the disruptors. Just a very difficult unit to dislodge again. I didn't hate the opportunity or the attempt from DisK at a counter offense, at trying to maybe force an awkward base trade or something like that. But ultimately, Nina does stand tall in game 1.
Yeah, looks good doing it. Just the whole way that game broke down, right? DisK, he had faster third base, got to cancel Nina's third, had his blink faster, had that map control. We talked about this feeling of comfort, of control. He was all over the place, got his fourth base up really early. But when you're playing against Nina in a PvP, there is only one god, and it's disruptors.
That is for certain, yeah. So we already, I think, covered most of our quota for disruptor shots during that first game. It's at 14. I think we probably just are just about there, if not at least like halfway through or something. Not sure if Wardy was counting. I certainly wasn't. But yeah, I mean, an exciting game 1. I thought that DisK had a very good position in terms of economy and setting himself up for that mid and late game. But when it came to the skirmishes and the position, it was always Nina with the advantage. So next map will be Oxide Nate. And I think we can expect a lot more of that during this series.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Should be plenty more disruptors to go in this one as we are in the lobby. The next map will be Oxide. Yeah, that's pretty much it, right? It's just we're likely to see a very similar game to the last one, unless one of them decides they want to get cheeky, bring out some cheddar, maybe some aged Gouda, I think they say in the Netherlands.
Gouda.
I've
never heard of that.
There's like a very specific way that you have to say it. Rotterdam also beat that one into my head over the years.
Gouda. Well, I'll have to learn.
Saying Gouda is like committing an atrocity in as far
really?
as the Dutch language
goes. I see. I didn't even know that it was Gouda you were talking about. That's
yeah,
very
exactly.
interesting. Yeah. One of the better cheeses out there. So I'll have to maybe learn how to pronounce it properly. It's kind of like how in America they murder the name of the green pepper. What is it called? The spicy green pepper from Mexico.
Jalapeno?
Exactly. Jalapeno, Nate. Not jalapeno.
Jalapeno.
Baited you into saying jalapeno because everyone says jalapeno, you know. It just, yeah.
I could have gone dad in my 50s and said jalapeno, you know.
Jalapeno.
Like
that's a little worse. I've heard that one too.
I'm from Pennsylvania. Believe me, I've heard some real awful butcherings of foreign words, and if you think the way I say Giganath is bad, oof, not even close. We are loaded in though, so we're ready to get to game 2. In the top right, the red Protoss player representing Storm Gaming and currently leading this series 1-0. She is Nina.
And for Apprentice Esports, it is the mostly recently cleanly shaven man. It is DisK. I guess a clean shave is really like closer to the skin, right? Or just a skin shave.
Well, I mean, as someone with facial hair, I could say that I shaved and just used like a number 2 trimmer, and that would be that. I would say that counts, but it wouldn't be a clean shave, right? I'd say a true clean shave would be if you're using like actual shaving cream and you want to just get all of it off, right, and just be completely baby faced. So usually with like
definitely a strong connotation for clean being baby faced, but I think that I mean, in the context of what his beard used to be, this looks a lot more organized, a lot more clean. It was a big beard.
Yeah,
cleaned it up.
The hedge trimmers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Still has the facial hair, but it's not. He's not going to get a letter from the HOA about this anymore.
Exactly. What is the HOA? I don't actually know. I have to ask.
That's the group of people who yell at you for doing things they don't like in your neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much it.
Okay,
they're like,
I see. Yeah. Like when you don't do the grass, right? Like
when you're retired and you don't really have a whole lot going on, you walk around your neighborhood and you find a hole in somebody's post and you make a big stink about it and let everybody know that they should be kicked out of the of the neighborhood sort of deal. That's what those people do.
I see. All right, so they sound like terrible people. If anyone in the chat is an HOH person, we clearly do not like you. But hey, DisK with a very nice block here to start things off. So he is deciding to mix things up. And not only that, but he also stole a gas, as Niall is showing. So very consistent in his approach here, as Nina is going to have no gas to work with, but also no expansion to work with, which makes things really, really awkward for her.
Yeah, it's a very weird spot to be in. We saw the cybernetics core block brought out yesterday, and it didn't really end up having a colossal effect in the PvP between Trigger and Neeb. It's one of those things that just seems really cool because you're like, I'm gonna black their base forever. But then you realize, oh, a Zealot and a Stalker can actually deal with this somewhat reasonably well. Having the gas blocked has to be the really tremendously annoying part, though, because you're just slowing everything down at that point. And DisK is going straight into
I love it.
Void Ray.
I absolutely love this, Nate, because what DisK knows for a fact is Nina is very, very thin when it comes to production, and she definitely didn't tech up, right? So while Nina might be able to accrue a strong financial edge down the line, DisK knows that this proxy, shield batteries, and the Void Ray will be very difficult to contest with Void Rays of Nina, or with something like, there won't be a Robo Immortal or something like that that's going to pop up anytime soon either. So Nina doing a wonderful job, though, denying 3 out of 4 of these shield batteries already.
That's huge. She's buying at the very least time, which is incredibly valuable when you're setting up for 2 base eco against a 1 base Void Ray all in. And as the shield battery's not done, oh man, imagine if you're able to kill that first Void Ray, that's where things get crazy. But the first battery finishes with barely any health. And okay, so remember we were casting that Neeb match and there were a bunch of Void Rays? This is a little bit more in the lines of how I like to see the response come in. Get in their face, don't let them set up, force a little bit extra. We didn't have Warp Gate from Asuna in the Void Ray all-in games, but Nina is putting herself in a pretty good spot. There's no pylon here anymore. There are no shield batteries, and well, there's not really a whole lot of faith I have in this attack working anymore either.
Yeah, and after this, I mean, it's gonna be Nina with a probe lead already. She's resuming probe production as well. She already has the Nexus 2. Things are not looking good at all for this. This is looking extremely difficult. The Void Rays are gonna, kind of just.
I love that he tries to click down the overcharged battery with the Void Ray that has like 2 health and no shields. Like, risky click of the day trying to grab that one. Nina will be able to defend it. Hey, there's a pylon here though. Yeah. So at the very least can clean that up. And don't think Nina can really do too much about those. If DisK wants, he can just wait, recall them. I don't think he wants to recall them since he needs to be chrono boosting probes about as hard as humanly possible, since Nina is sitting up 14 workers in a PvP. Yeah. And let's not forget, most of those are mining across 2 bases. It's not an oversaturated 1 base or anything of the kind. So Nina has to be feeling real good. These couple Stalkers will get pinched because she wanted to check out what was going on top of this ramp. Nice. But I don't think that'll end up being the worst loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 Stalkers. It's as good as this could have hoped for. But like you said, the worker disparity is astounding at this point in the game. So now DisK is going to go for the shield battery with the prismatic alignment now renewed. 2 Stalkers, 3 Stalkers are going to come, but they're not going to be enough. So DisK, for the first time, okay, this is a little bit hopeful. I mean, this game had been going terribly for him. 2 of the Stalkers will fall, a 3rd one to follow. And the Void Ray that was always going to die, I feel like was destined to die in this attack, dies indeed. The other Void Ray does get away. And glimmers of hope for a DisK that still lags a lot of workers behind.
Yeah, that's such a dicey situation to be in when you feel like you have to engage the Void Rays with the Stalkers, especially without Blink. It's a little known fact, I guess, sometimes, but I do like to occasionally bring up. The Void Ray actually increases its attack range once it starts to attack. So once it locks onto a unit and it's shooting with that laser, even if you walk a little bit away, if you were at max range before, it'll still track you for a little bit. It goes up to about 8 range once it's locked. So if you don't have Blink to break that, it's hard to run away because they'll just stay tracked onto you. They'll follow you a little bit, and it can be really easy to have all your Stalkers die very quickly, like what happened with Neeb. in that game earlier today. So it's a good play by Nina to be able to push them away without losing too much. And now Blink, well, Blink makes the rest of everything that I just said invalid. So we get to move on to the mid game.
Yeah, and thank you for putting that into words. I feel like that's something that I think most of us know instinctively, but I'd never actually thought about it. And yeah, Void Rays do have more range as the units run away, right? Is that publicly stated somewhere, or?
Yeah, it's called leash range. It's in the editor and all that stuff. But once it starts to, it's like how a carrier can only launch interceptors within 8 range, but once they're out, they can keep firing until the unit's more than 13 range away.
Very cool.
So for the Void Ray, it's pretty much the same thing. They get +1 once they're firing, and they can attack while moving only if they're moving towards the unit that they are currently shooting.
Yeah, again, instinctively, something that I think we all know, like when the Void Ray leashes onto the unit and the unit goes away, obviously you see that, and as a player, you'll know that the unit will continue to take damage for a little bit longer. I just never heard it stated. So yeah, thank you for that. We see the observer now of DisK. Gonna be spotting the army of Nina and also the third of Nina, as he will spot the probes in transit. So DisK is gonna be pressed to make something happen with these Immortals. I don't know that he has any sort of a timing. There is a War Prism, luckily for him, on the side of Nina. So Nina perhaps looking to potentially get aggressive herself. And in the counter offense, she could force DisK to all in, but I feel like that's what DisK wants to do regardless right now. So much rather I would have liked to see an Immortal being produced from that Robo if Nina identifies that all she needs to do right now is survive.
Yep, and this is going to be a big moment. The observer is here getting lots of vision. The Immortals are huge.
Wow.
So Nina just blinks straight on top of them, says, okay, well, you got the Immortals are problems, then I'll try to remove them from the equation at the very beginning of the battle. Does kill one of them. And at some point I have to wonder if she wants to make a play back up the ramp a little bit, since she does have several shield batteries up there. I don't think there's too much reason to not try to get a little bit of power back. The Void Ray rears its ugly head. There's a photon cannon. Get out of here.
Get out of here. Indeed, now the rest of the Blinkstalkers are going to pounce onto the Immortal, and it will be taken down. That was the crucial piece that DisK had that Nina didn't have. And with that out of the equation, Nina just has more everything, Nate. So it looks like Nina will be able to close this out and take the 2-0. She doesn't need to be fighting this, but she has more units regardless. So she knows that, and confidently, she will close out Oxide.
And GG is called. I'm always like, do you play on the ramp? Well, it's Oxide. You don't want to have to go to the low ground to protect your third. It's always just a really awkward position to be put in. But just really good decision making by Nina. It warms my heart to see her playing in such good form, because I've been a fan for a really long time, and it's just it's kind of been a roller coaster sometimes, right? With things that are going on in life and in practice and in changes that happen in the game. But I have to say, it's been a very, very solid showing from her so far, and sitting up 2-0. She's got to be feeling good as we get into game 3.
Yeah, it's really great to see her in good spirits as well before the matches, tweeting happy thoughts. And that is when we know Nina is at her best in the game as well, right? Like when she's feeling good outside, she's really doing good in the game. So that is really, really good to see. Not so good if you are a DisK fan. However, I really loved his opening because everything was consistent about it. He's not usually the type of player to proxy batteries or go for Void Rays. I think this was just reactive because he got so many opportunities to do that, right? Like steals the gas, delays the natural. So he says basically, your economy eventually will be a little bit better than mine. You did take that Nexus, but you didn't have access to the gas, and you only had access to one gateway. So Void Rays in my mind, proxied Void Rays of all things, seems perfect. But Nina, with whatever she had, gets out there so early and just focuses down every single battery before it goes down. I think one ends up going up, right? Like one ends up, or two end up going up. The first one dies right after it goes up. The second one is there for a little bit longer, but mostly inconsequential. And Nina, yeah, really, with what little to work with she had, she stalls and makes that into a victory. So very, very impressive.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good play. And I love that you mentioned that too, because we can kind of lose sight of the way that early game went. If she lets him just build a gateway and 3 batteries outside of her natural, then the whole thing looks different. If you missed the start of that game, that's how it went down. So that's what Nina was able to make that lead off of. She wanted to do a quick expand. He wanted to do a Void Ray rush. Sometimes it's just, it just boils down to having the courage to step outside your base and be like, is there something here? Oh, there is? Oh, okay, I can shut it down. If she had waited even just, 20, maybe even 10 seconds more, that could have turned into a proper dumpster fire, Cats, but that is not what happened. And here we are with our red Otas in the top left, leading 2-0 from Sidestorm Gaming. She is Nina.
And the bottom right-hand side, it is for Apprentice Esports, DisK.
What does DisK do here? The cheese didn't work. The macro game where he got economically ahead didn't work. Do we break out a different cheese? Do we find something that we could describe as something that isn't cheese that happens to be aggressive in a video game? I don't know.
Yeah, very tough to know what to do here if you're DisK, I think. And we also don't know how the matches against each other have gone, like behind the scenes on the ladder, etc. Right? Like two of the very, very strongest Protoss in North America here are going up against each other, so they certainly have a decent bit of information on their opponent here. And yeah, it's if I was asked just out of nowhere, out of the blue, like who I think the stronger macro player is out of these two, I really wouldn't know. I think that they're both excellent. So if you're a DisK and your assessment is similar, you probably just want to take it there. Just want to do a little bit better with those disruptors, want to keep up a little bit better in terms of just the positioning that we saw Nina constantly get away with in that first game. The vision game was not there for him. So that is one adjustment that he could definitely make. Maybe get that over the observer speed for himself and just not get out positioned all the time, which was his main issue there.
All excellent points. I don't disagree. I think it's really hard because the way that Nina likes to play that mid-late game, no matter what kind of advantage or lead you think you've built, if you want to actually turn it into a real advantage based on the way that she likes to play, I think you have to just go and try to go into disruptors at the same time or earlier than her. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you have that eco lead and you're able to just have that second robo a bit faster or get the robo or the robo bay itself a little bit more quickly, then you can start to see where it gets hard, where someone's only got 2 or 3 Novas and the other one has like 5 or 6. I don't see DisK trying to take the game in that direction. So if it's not going to be that, it needs to be something that will give him an advantage even when there are disruptors.
Yeah, there's a triple sentry opening actually from DisK here. He opened Stalker Sentry to start, only revealed the Stalker to kill the probe. So Nina doesn't necessarily know that the next unit is sentry, but much less does she know that the next 2 units after that are also sentries. So again, I think we're seeing a DisK that's reverting back to his comfort zone. In the macro department, he's just going to be looking to constantly have those hallucinations going towards her opponent or his opponent, and just kind of find as much information and as much as much information as he needs to adapt, right? And to change his game plan according to what Nina might be doing.
That's right. It's a good map for defensive styles. Romanticide, the hands down one of the best for taking it to a late game situation. And Nina lets the shades finish. There was nothing there to block them from going inside.
Ooh, wow.
But maybe a little bit mismanaged after the shade happened. The force fields kind of pinned them in, but she doesn't really get too much in terms of probe kills for what she spent. But I guess it's not that big of a deal since we already know DisK has not really set himself up to be aggressive in this game. If he follows the pattern that we were discussing when he played that first map, it was the 3 sentry opening there too. He's going to go into his blink a little bit more quickly, but actually that's not on the table either, Cats, because Nina has the Twilight Council much faster as DisK went for a robo this game.
Yeah, that's interesting in its own right. He's going to be quicker to that forge instead. So kind of swapping roles a little bit there are DisK and Nina. Very cool move from DisK as well to move one of his probes closer to the shield battery to protect it against the the killing blow that would have come from that Adept while Nina was in his mineral line. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like the position for this. Again, more information for him, having those extra sentries as well. And the game is looking to slow down and potentially just stabilize from here, Nate.
Yeah, it seems about in line with our expectations for a Romanticide game. The Hallucinated Phoenix sees the third Nexus. And with Immortals being built, you're going to have that ramp, that high ground to defend with. Now, so we talked about how DisK could have tried to apply the pressure earlier with the blink that he had in that build that we were discussing. But since, as you've already pointed out, they've kind of swapped roles with that. Nina is the one that has the blink earlier. It's still not done though, so I feel a little bit, you know, I get a little bit Monk-esque seeing everything move over here without the ability to disengage. And the Observer is going to see the whole army too. So walking up this ramp without blink is a little bit scary. She has more units. But the Immortal, if those force fields hit and those, oh, look at that, hallucinates another one. So really trying to scare Nina into disengaging.
Or into blinking for an Immortal potentially as well. If it was the hallucination that gets blinked on, then that would have been pretty good for DisK as well, who now has 2 real Immortals on that hallucination. But Nina doesn't know which is which. DisK knows that because he has an Observer as well. So this should be okay. Oh, no, DisK. He does not lose that sentry. That's pretty crucial for him.
Wow, it's good. I was going to say, really good target fire by Nina. She almost got it. And the sentry has 1 hit point in the bottom right of your screen. You can see that. Very, very close. It's literally as close as it could have been without getting the kill. So a little bit annoying, but I'm glad that she dove for the sentry and not the Immortal, because that would have really stung once she one-shot the hallucination.
Furthermore, if we look at the sentries, the one that she was targeting was the one that had the most energy by a lot too. So it was a very important piece there for DisK. Good on both players though. Good on DisK to save that sentry. We'll now look to scout with a Hallucinated Phoenix once again. And the game will again stabilize, Nate. It's looking like a longer one. Let me tell you why my Tostones. So
all right, hit me.
So I go to the supermarket, right? Like pretty regularly, like once a week or something. And then I'm a huge fan of tostones. We've already established that Cuban food is really good here. But usually the bagged tostones are not that great, to be honest, right? Like they're usually just kind of plantain chips. And no one ever really markets them as tostones, but just plantain chips. They're more recognizable. You know what you're eating, and so on and so forth, right? So there
you were saying these are like garlic fried chips,
right? Usually, yeah. So they're very difficult to emulate for general consumption or mass, I guess, production.
It's like meant to be cooked properly.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. So I've never really found a bag of tostones that I'm like, oh, this is it, right? In terms of like just going to a supermarket and buying one of the shelves. So there is this shelf, however, at the supermarket that has 2 brands of tostones, and one costs twice as much, and the bag is just beautiful. Like it's you know, when it comes to snacks, like there's the kind of ugly kind of plastic bags that are very reflective and stuff that like just looks like they're trying to save as much money as possible. And then there's the matted, like the matte color type bags, a little bit desaturated, a little bit more.
Oh yeah, like the kettle chip bag.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so you know they're not really, you know, trying to save every penny and just mass produce as much as possible. And also there's the hint that the tostones cost twice as much as their competitor that they're sharing a shelf with, right? So I'm like, all right, let me give those a shot. I tried them, Nate, and they were incredible. The best back tostones that I had ever had, right? So
but for legal reasons, I can't ask you for the brand on stream.
Right, yeah,
Again, you need to DM me when we're done.
I'll DM you. I don't, the thing is, I don't know if the brand is very widely spread or available, because this was kind of a timing window that I hit for these tostones in particular, where they were disappearing from the shelf.
You hit a timing window?
I did. I swear. They were disappearing from the shelves, and I was noticing this week to week that there was less of this brand and more of the other brand that costs half as much, but is not nearly as good, right? Oh, big engagement here potentially, as DisK is going to have to reposition his army. But yeah, I mean, we're seeing the game develop as it does. It's going to be Disruptor on Disruptor, DisK with a couple of Immortals. And let's check out these Disruptors before we go back to the Tostones, as it seems like there will be a whiff. And the players will kind of just call it truce for now. So again, I took a little bit of a risk, like a $4 bag of basically chips is not really what that's not really it, right? But I tried it and I was like, wow, that's worth it, right?
Yeah, but no, this is like the first time you buy beef jerky that isn't like the generic Jack Link's brand you can get everywhere. Like you actually like find like a good well, it's gonna be more expensive. You get like a real actual like fresh beef jerky brand, and it's day and night difference.
For sure. I don't feel like Jack Link's is going to be sponsoring DreamHack anytime soon now, but that's
fine.
Okay,
I apologize. You guys are looking for reasons to fire me. It's okay. Chat wants me gone. I understand.
Imagine if they were working
that's what it takes.
Behind the scenes.
If that's what it takes to get them to give us another season of DreamHack, then put me on the gallows.
I love it. Anyhow. So like this unannounced brand of tostones, right, is my favorite ever. But it's quickly disappearing from the shelves as Nina inches closer and closer, but nothing really ends up happening. And there is more of the shelf being populated by the cheaper, crappier brand of tostones. So then I see that there is a 2-for-1 deal on the tostones that I love, right? It's buy one, get one free. And this happens like 3 weeks ago or something. And I'm like, oh my God. But it's limited to like 4 per household, you know?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, everything's like that nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why that is, but limited to 4 per household. So I get 4 each time that I go, and then they're not being replaced. You know, and I noticed it.
No.
So, yeah.
I can tell you that the places I buy my jerky at only have expired stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
The disruptor shots are going to start to trade big time.
Ooh.
As we have both players now have enough disruptors to feel comfortable with getting into these battles. And again, it's always deceiving because you look, the words echo in your mind, Luca di Supply. But for Nina's disruptors usually just manage to hit a little bit better, shave off a couple more units, and that's a good pick for DisK.
Yeah, the good thing for DisK is this time around, this map, now he is being a little bit more proactive out on the map with the disruptors. If he can find the good positions, if he can find the siege onto one of the bases of Nina, that will be incredible for him. A little bit of an awkward angle, but the other off-brand disruptors here are gonna come from a very difficult angle. Nina will be paying attention, however, and yet still DisK posturing to take a very annoying position here on the side of the base of Nina, but only 2 disruptor shots available.
Yeah, it's very, very tricky situation. DisK really playing Nina's game this time around, as he has 30 stalkers and 6 disruptors. There's some zealots, sure, but Nina hasn't had quite as comfortable of a time with these trades, and now trying to get DisK's army out of her base. But there's one thing that disruptors are good at other than just killing units. It's zoning away so that you don't get killed by them. And
DisK is gonna land on those.
3 of the disruptors for for DisK get blown up by Nina. Now she's gonna feel confident to blink forward again, and that's where the turnaround starts. It gets scary. So DisK has 25 stalkers and 24 zealots, and against Nina's 3 zealots, 24 stalkers and 8 disruptors. So I guess maybe DisK is thinking to himself, okay, we're gonna have to rely on something other than just disruptors here, because trying to beat Nina at her own game is not going to be a viable option.
Yeah, but that's kind of what happened in the first macro game that they played against each other. At some point, Nina just had more disruptors, just hit more of those disruptors onto the army of DisK, and DisK didn't really find an answer for that. So Nina looking fantastic here, DisK looking for the counter offense, and he does have a lot of units that kill buildings a little bit faster than Nina can with that disruptor army. He is also a little bit better spread than he was in the previous game, now focus firing Nexus. So maybe if he can take a couple of these bases, the more important bases from Nina, and then kind of collapse onto the army of Nina on defense, maybe he can make something happen. I'm not sure that I'm a huge fan of that recall either.
Yeah, the most interesting part about what's going on right now, there are several Dark Templar that have been warped in defensively for Nina. They cleaned up the Zealots at this space that we're taking a look at. That's just been destroyed. And the other observer that was alive for DisK was on hold position in that little siege mode in the southwest of the map. So it's not really close enough to help. So the stalkers are kind of in hit and run mode, deal some damage, jump away. But pretty much everything bleeds out quite substantially in the process. And especially with at least one of these fresh spaces being mining for Nina, that is a huge dub. Yeah. Considering that the natural is mining out, the main is mining out, and the third still only has 4 mineral patches. So DisK's income is very, very limited at the moment.
That is the biggest deal, right? Because when DisK scouts that base and that it's up and mining, you gotta feel really bad if you're DisK, because you just killed 2 bases and you had 3 bases. That was your economic kind of position where you had an advantage. But in finding that base, you just know that Nina is ahead once again in every front. This is looking like a 3-0 Nate. Good blink offensively with the DTs, however. And this Raptor shot down behind from DisK. No observer either. Nate, I mean, this is a little bit of yeah, I mean, this should not be happening, but it is indeed. And this with a supply advantage where I thought the game was completely over, to be honest. But where is the observer and those disruptors on the flank? Incredible job here from the French Canadian to hold on.
That was a really, really well done defense by DisK. The game should have been over. But gets a couple of those disruptors. I didn't even see them moving all the way around to the top where that gold base was, or the gold gas rather is, and that turns that makes for a pretty big swing. The economic situation is still quite nice for Nina because she has that left side base, which has at least a lot of fresh mineral patches, and the Nexus wasn't destroyed, or at least I think she rebuilt it for that 4th base. So she's got plenty of access to resources, just needs to get the probes there.
Yeah, what a way to stabilize though from DisK. I mean, he's very much back in this game unless he loses this Nexus, which is looking rather likely.
Oh,
wow,
so they both have observer speed, Paolo. Yeah. So the DTs, it's not going to be super simple for them to run, as it's the DT blink cooldown is significantly longer than the Stalker's blink cooldown. So Stalkers can blink every 7 seconds, DTs every 14 seconds. So it makes it quite hard to run away.
Oh, the disruptors.
And DisK's disruptors. Nina's going to pick one of them off.
Yeah, DisK pays attention just in time to not lose his entire fleet of disruptors there. Or his entire ball of disruptors. As there's 2 more shots available. I think this can get blinked on. Nina's going to choose to be careful here. Choose caution over overextending. Whereas DisK is trying to continue to harass with these DTs. However, in range of a cannon at this point, will get surrounded, trapped in place, and taken down.
Yeah, so very good defense there. A couple of probes did die, but not the end of the world. DisK similarly defended against Nina's Dark Templar, has his Nexus up and running, full saturation, so he's starting to make bank again. And his disruptor shots for Nina looking good so far, but despite everything we've been saying with how many bases were lost or held or whatever, or had to be rebuilt, Nina hasn't been able to turn that into a big army supply advantage again. There's a tremendous amount of Stalkers for DisK. 35 to just 21 from Nina.
Yeah, but a lot more disruptors on the American Protoss side. So it is looking a little bit like this could still go either way. I don't know if I like DisK's army to try and fight Nina's head on. Nina with a blink forward though won't have the blink to blink back, and regardless, only like 3 or so Stalkers fall in the process. Be careful, DisK! Okay.
Wow, talk about a dangerous fight to be poking towards, as that these disruptor shots getting real close. And little DTs going over towards that northwest spot again. We're seeing some of the units getting recalled back. Maybe perhaps the observer. Yes, the observer gets recalled, so the Stalkers can deal with these Dark Templar.
Yeah, good job from Nina there. She does
a lot of DTs.
Thrive in chaos, but yeah, that is a lot of DTs. I mean, this army is gonna get blinked on again, and with that, DisK has claimed a pretty good position here. Be careful with the disruptor shot still. He needs to be, as his own disruptors are potentially gonna be able to zone out as he crosses towards the ramp of Nina. So now with there is no observer for this.
Oh, DisK's observer's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about the DTs are gonna end up being MVP for both players by the end of this one. Nina blinks right at the last second with those DTs.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a strong positional advantage for DisK if he had an observer, right? Because then all of the disruptors are kind of cutting the bridge between Nina's army and potentially defending her natural and main base. But that matters not if there is no observer for the DTs, Nate. So
2 of them are making their way towards the army. This DT will probably, just get 1 tap. No problemo. Did open up a door for an attack on the south side, though, by Nina. She blinks into the disruptors. Going to lose 3 for that one, but she does get her own disruptors into a nice spot As we talked about earlier, there are quite a few of them. 7 disruptors for Nina with this army.
Yeah,
she's just trying to bash
she is going to
down.
have a strong positional advantage. DisK is trying to do what he can with his own disruptors to kind of regain some ground, but Nina always with the preventive shots, and she has shots to spare, is going to be able to zone out for DisK to kind of just not have much of an economy left. He really has just that one base forward to mine from at this point, so can't really be affording to lose ground like this. At some point, you just got to blink on top of the army and go for it. I mean, he has such a massive number of stalkers, but is not able to capitalize. 46 to 16, 30 more stalkers on the side of DisK.
This game is just so crazy. DisK has an insane amount of stalkers. He's gone up to now 11 DTs, cats. So these DTs are meant to be a true giga hit squad that if he can get them right on top of Nina's disruptors, could blow them all to pieces quickly. Blinks forward. There it is. Snipe on 1, 2 of them very low.
That last hit, though.
That Nova was a great defensive one. Hits the stalkers too. And Nina's stalker count has been thinned out, but it cost a lot for DisK to do that.
Yeah, and here's the wonderful part for DisK is he just got rid of all the disruptors, and he knows he has a much greater army supply from Nina. I mean, more than twice the army supply that Nina has. And Nina has been expanding a little bit too much. I mean, you've been taking bases like crazy from DisK, so I'm not sure that you need to be the one expanding here. So that bottom left-hand side base could be an extra for Zealots, for example, that she might well end up needing here, Nate. As DisK should be crossing the map, he needs not to hesitate again against one single DT. You just need to go for it and try to end the game right here, right now.
Yeah, this is it. You're not really going to get many more opportunities than this, especially with the aforementioned 12 probes to 51. So for DisK, it's going to be all on these stalkers. We were still talking about the DTs, but they've mostly been dealt with now. So blinks for days. And it is hard to chase stalkers, even with disruptors. So if you're Nina, you're trying to get that economy up. You're trying to build those forces to deal with this. But, 3 workers now.
Yeah, and that's the problem for DisK is he keeps running around picking off bases, but that's not his win condition, right? Like, you can pick off every base, but if you're losing units in the process, that's bad. The only way you ever win this game is by fighting the army of Nina, the now ever-growing caught-up army of Nina, versus the half-supply army of Nina that it was a little bit ago, right? So if he had taken that fight earlier, I think he stands a chance, but he always needs to kill this army in order to win the game. Here come the blink on forwards. The disruptors all fire at the same time. A lot of them will connect. And I can't help but to think that that's all Nina needs. She knows that as long as she retreats to safe ground, to that shield battery, to the cannon, and to her reinforcements, this game should be now impossible to lose. Nina, swift 3-0.
Very, very well.